Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here at the Intent Hockey channel. We're doing another live trade deadline video. We've got some important we're doing another draft lottery video. We're going to be doing a draft lottery live video here, discussing all the draft lottery things that have happened, as today is draft lottery day. So today we're going to be discussing and finding out what happens in the draft lottery. Who gets the first overall pick, and who's going to be lucky enough to draft Macklin Celebrini in June. So we're going to see what happens here as the draft lottery is just getting underway. We'll get to all of that up next. So hello everyone, I hope everyone's having a nice day today. Once again, I want to apologize for my screen. It might freeze a little bit given my Wi-Fi situation right now. It's not the greatest of Wi-Fi, so I do apologize if it buffers at all, but I really do. So I do apologize if it buffers at all, but I really do thank you for joining the stream. If you want to leave a chat, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think what happens in the draft lottery today. It's going to be interesting to see exactly who ends up winning first overall. So we do have a couple of interesting notes to talk about here. So the 11 teams are going to be able to draft first overall this year. 11 teams are going to be able to draft first overall. That includes 11 teams are going to be able to draft first overall. So that includes Buffalo, who could move up from 11 to 1, New Jersey, who's 10th, Calgary, who's 9th, Seattle, who's 8th, Ottawa, who's 7th, Utah, who's 6th, Montreal, who's 5th, Columbus is 4th, Anaheim is 3rd, Chicago 2nd, and San Jose is 1st. So those are the player teams who have the shot at getting first overall. San Jose has a 25.5% chance of moving up to first overall. Chicago at 13.5%. Anaheim has 11.5% chance. Columbus has a 9.5% chance. Montreal has an 8.5% chance. Utah 7.5% chance. Ottawa 6.5% chance. Seattle 6% chance. 5% chance for Calgary and a 3.5% chance. And a 3.5% chance for the Devils, as well as a 3% chance for the Buffalo Sabres. And then the Flyers will have a 2.5% chance of just moving up. The Wild will have a 2% chance of moving up. The Penguins will have a 1.5% chance of moving up. The Red Wings and the Blues both have a 0.5% chance of moving up. So that's really good stuff there. On top of that, you've also got this. On top of that, the teams who have a shot at getting first overall, here's how many times they have picked first overall in the past. So the Sharks have never picked first overall. The Blackhawks have picked first overall twice. That was back in 2007 when they drafted Kane, and that was back in 2023 last year when they drafted Bedard. The Ducks have never picked first overall. The Jackets did once. I'm pretty sure it was 2002 when they got Rick Nash. So the Jackets have gotten a first overall pick before. The Canadiens have gotten 6 first overall picks in the past. That includes That includes 2 years ago when they took Juraj Slafkovsky. Utah, being a new franchise, has never been able to pick first overall, so we'll see what happens there. But even Arizona before them had never been able to pick first overall. Ottawa's been able to pick first overall 3 times. The last time that the Senators picked first overall was back in 1996 when they drafted Chris Phillips. So they have drafted first overall a couple of times. The Seattle Kraken, in their short history, have never been able to draft first overall. The Calgary Flames have never been able to draft first overall, as the Flames are a really good team, but they have never been able to draft first overall. The New Jersey Devils have twice. That includes back in 2017 when they drafted Hischier, and 2019 when they drafted Jack Hughes. And then the Buffalo Sabres have also drafted a couple of times first overall, including 4 times. That was Power in 2021, Dahlin in 2018, and then a couple of other ones in the 1900s. So there have been a couple of times that these player teams have been able to pick first overall, which is really good. So that's really good news there. So on top of that, so it'll be interesting to see if a new team who's never won first overall winds up getting first overall. So teams that have never picked first overall who have a shot at it is the Calgary Flames. It'll be interesting to see them give Macklin Celebrini. Imagine Celebrini playing with Huberdeau. Seattle, they've already won a draft lottery spot before in their first ever draft lottery when they moved up from 3rd to 2nd to draft Matty Beniers. So they have had draft lottery success before, but they've never been able to draft first overall. Like we said, Utah, new franchise. Even Arizona before them has never had draft lottery success, but Utah, being a new franchise, has never had draft lottery success, so we'll see if they are able to. The Ducks and the Sharks, two California teams, have never been able to win first overall. I think they've won second overall a couple of times maybe, but they've not been able to win first overall, so really bad stuff there for those two teams, and hopefully maybe one of those two guys get lucky. I mean, I think the Sharks really deserve Celebrini, just given the fact that they were the worst team this year, didn't hit 20 wins, didn't hit 50 points, they were a bomb-dwelling team, they really sucked. I really do think that the Sharks deserve Celebrini. Besides that, I think a team like Utah will be fantastic to get Celebrini. Imagine Ottawa grabbing Celebrini with the forward group they already have. That would be fantastic. Seattle, Calgary, both those two Western teams have never won the draft lottery spot either. So if they are able to win the draft lottery, that could be a big boost for them. They're both sort of in the middling ground right now. They're not bad enough to be a really bomb-dwelling team, but they're also not good enough to make the playoffs this year. So I think that could be a really interesting thing for those two teams. On top of that, you've also got, hold on a sec here. On top of that, you also have, I would also think if Columbus wins first overall, getting Celebrini on a younger team, that would be interesting. I know a lot of people would hate to see Chicago win first overall, which is what a lot of people are expecting, to have them have back-to-back draft lottery success. Maybe that's a possibility, but I'm not sure if that would happen. It will also be interesting to see if any of the other teams who can't move up to first overall do end up moving up. You got Philadelphia at 12th overall. They can move up to as high as second. You've got Minnesota at 13th overall. They can move up to as high as third. You've got San Jose via the Pittsburgh Penguins. They can move up to 14th overall. You have Detroit, who's 15th overall. They can move up to 5th. And you have St. Louis, who's 16th overall. They can move up to 6th. So there are a couple of other teams who can move up in this draft, but it's probably extremely unlikely. So we're going to have to wait and see exactly what happens in this draft lottery. It hasn't gotten started yet as of this point in time, but it should be in the not too distant future. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly who ends up winning the draft lottery. It's a really entertaining thing. Over the past couple of years, we actually haven't seen too many draft lotteries. You know, back a couple of years ago before they changed the draft simulation and the way that they did it, when they had 3 picks being up for grabs, not just 2, we used to see some big jumps. Like, I know we saw, I think it was Dallas make a big jump in 2017. I know the Carolina Hurricanes made a big jump when they drafted Andrei Svechnikov. Made huge draft jumps over the past couple of years, but over the past few years, it's actually not been really that huge of a jumps. I mean, if you look back to the last 3 years, which is when they started changing the draft lottery to only 2 picks, the movement has really not been that much. I mean, Buffalo, back in the 2021 draft, stayed first overall, and only Seattle and Anaheim swapped. So Anaheim went from 2 to 3, Seattle went from 3 to 2. That was the only movement in that draft. In the 2022 draft, Montreal stayed first overall. They had the lowest record. They wound up winning the draft. And the New Jersey Devils went from 5th to 2nd. So they bumped down the other 3 teams who were 2nd, 3rd, 4th to 3rd, 4th, 5th, and they went up. So the Devils had some draft lottery success, but still, once again, not that huge jump we usually saw before they made to 2 draft lottery teams. And on top of that, you also have the just give me a second here. On top of that, you also have the hold on a minute, just give me a second. The New Jersey Devils, New Jersey Devils, like we said, went up from 5th to 2nd. Last year, there was not very much movement either. Chicago went up from 1 to 3. Dropped Anaheim down from 1 to 2, Columbus down from 2 to 3. That was the only movement we had. So over the past couple of years, ever since they changed the draft lottery simulation to where it's only the top 2 in the draft, it sort of really changed it up a little bit, and they haven't seen too much movement in the draft. So I'm not expecting an overabundance of movement, but if we could see a big jump, even at someone like Minnesota going from like 14 to 4, that would be really interesting to see. So it's going to be interesting to see for sure, but I definitely do expect some movement of some sorts. Each of the last 3 years we've had some movement, but how significant that movement is will be interesting to see. And there's also been a couple of rumors that there have been some leaked photos on Twitter saying exactly how that draft lottery simulation is going to go. I haven't seen those pictures yet, so don't know what the simulation was going to be projected to be, if that was exactly what happened. But it is going to be an interesting situation to watch out for, if that is exactly what the pictures were saying on Twitter, or if that is a little bit different. It's going to be interesting to see. So it's going to be a really interesting thing to watch out for. I do think just responding to Timothy Firth here, I do think there's a very likely chance that we do see the Sharks win first overall since these lottery changes have been made. The first team, the last 2 of the last 3 years, has won the draft lottery, so the team with the best odds has indeed wound up winning it. So I do think it's a very likely possibility we see the Sharks do wind up winning the draft lottery. And yeah, the Flames have only picked once in once in the top 5 in franchise history. The Flames have been a really successful franchise, but it's going to be interesting to see exactly if they're able to win the first overall. I know I've seen a lot of Flames fans on Twitter wanting to get first overall. They have the 9th overall pick right now. I think even if they were to move up a little bit and get into like the top 5, that would be a very good win for the Flames. That would be a good win there for the Flames, given all of that stuff. So it will be interesting to see exactly what happens there, but I really do think this is going to be an interesting draft lottery simulation. We still haven't gone to the exact draft lottery at this point in time, but we should be able to get there in a not too distant future. So we're just looking at the draft lottery odds right now. Like we said, Detroit, St. Louis, like we said, St. Louis, Detroit, Pittsburgh, San Jose via Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Philly, Buffalo, New Jersey, Calgary, Seattle, Ottawa, Utah, Montreal, Columbus, Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose. And it's actually over in here in the corners too. As you can see over here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the Sharks, Blackhawks, Ducks, and Jackets. Over here in the corner here are the Canadiens, the Utah franchise, the Senators, and the Kraken. Over here you have the Flames at 9, the Devils at 10, Sabres at 11, and Flyers at 12. And over down here you have the Wild at 13, Sharks at 14, Red Wings at 15, and the Blues at 16. So it'll be really interesting to see who winds up winning this draft lottery. Like I said, if I was picking who I want to see win the draft lottery, I mean, in my opinion, I think the Sabres have had a lot of draft lottery success. So have the Devils. Canadians have had some draft lottery success recently. So the Blackhawks, I mean. So I could see, I would be all in favor of a team like Ottawa or Seattle or Calgary getting first overall. Utah being the new franchise, I would see that being a win as first overall. On top of that, Columbus, Anaheim, San Jose, who've never won. I could see those. I can get behind those guys winning first overall in the draft. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly who ends up going first in the draft. But it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. Who exactly goes first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. So it will be interesting to note there. Also, if the Blackhawks do end up winning the draft lottery, they did implement that new rule where teams can only move up 2 times in a 5-year span. So if the Hawks do end up winning first overall, they won't be able to move up next year if they do end up winning a draft lottery spot. So that's going to be interesting to see. But it will be interesting to see if the Hawks do end up winning, or if a team who's never even gotten first overall in their history get first overall this year. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But we should be able to get ready in the not too distant future. After this draft lottery live video, I will be doing a mock draft following the draft lottery, probably in the next couple of days, either Wednesday or sometime on the weekend. Not exactly sure when I'll do it right now, but I will have a mock draft after this draft lottery simulation. So we're just about to get ready for the draft lottery simulation, and we're going to the draft lottery right now. So 16th is the St. Louis Blues, just like it's over here. So the Blues stay 16th, not too much surprise there. 15th overall, we have the Detroit Red Wings, so no surprise there. Red Wings do not move up. They will be picking 15th overall. 14th overall, we have the, just give me a second here, Pittsburgh Penguins. So the Sharks will be picking 14th overall with the Pittsburgh Penguins first round draft pick. So the Sharks will have 2 top 16 picks in this year's draft. 13th overall, hold on a minute here. At 13th overall, the pick goes to, it should be Minnesota, and it is Minnesota. So the Wild do round up remaining 13th overall, and we'll be picking right in front of the San Jose Sharks. At 12th overall, it should be the Philadelphia Flyers. It is the Philadelphia Flyers. Okay, so no surprises there. Flyers do pick 12th overall. So interesting stuff there. The first few picks are going to be exactly like we thought. St. Louis, Detroit, San Jose via Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Philadelphia. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens after that, 11 through 1. So it will be interesting to see. But the teams who could have moved up and maybe not gone first overall don't move up. So interesting stuff there. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with the rest of it. It's going to be really interesting to see who ends up getting first overall. We have the 11th overall pick now. This should be Buffalo, and the 11th overall pick is Buffalo. So the Buffalo Sabres will be picking 11th overall. They do not move up in the draft. 10th overall is next. That should be the New Jersey Devils if everything stays the same. And it is the New Jersey Devils. So the Devils do pick 10th overall. Not too surprising there. So now we have the top 9 picks. Calgary, Seattle, like we said, never won draft lottery simulations. They're next 2. Let's see if they are still the next 2. 7th overall, we have, I think it was Ottawa. Yeah, 6, you have Utah, 5, Montreal, 4, Columbus, 3, Anaheim, 2, Chicago, and 1, San Jose. So we'll have to wait and see if that's still the order that goes in the next couple of minutes. Just waiting on what happens next. But for the time being, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11 have remained the same, and those are going to be where those teams are picking. So St. Louis, Detroit, San Jose via Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Philadelphia, Buffalo, New Jersey. Or Buffalo. New Jersey, not at this point in time yet. So we'll see if the... And we have the 9th overall pick. It is the Calgary Flames. So the Flames will be picking 9th overall. So unfortunately for them, they do not get 1st overall. 8th overall, we do have the Seattle Kraken. So the Kraken will be picking 8th overall. They do not, unfortunately, get 1st overall pick. 7th overall, it should be the Ottawa Senators. It is the Ottawa Senators. So the Senators do wind up picking 7th overall. So interesting stuff there. Utah should be 6th here. And it is Utah. So Utah does pick 6th overall. Not too surprised there, so they don't move up in the draft. 5th overall, this should be the Montreal Canadiens. And the pick is the Montreal Canadiens. So we're now down to the final 4. So the Jackets, Ducks, Hawks, and Sharks. Just like last year, where it was the Hawks, Ducks, Sharks, Hawks, and Jackets. So the top 4 will remain the top 4. It'll be interesting to see if there's any movement in the top 4. But up until 4, 16 through 5, those picks do wind up remaining those top 10 picks. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But we are going to see that top 4 remain the top 4. So like we said, Jackets have won 1st overall once. The Blackhawks have won twice, while the Sharks and the Ducks have never won 1st overall pick in the franchise history. So it'll be interesting to see, but we know that St. Louis is 16, Detroit's 15, San Jose via Pittsburgh is 14, and then so on and so forth. It seems like we're about to get ready for number 4 overall, and the 4th overall pick should be the Jackets. And it is the Jackets. So the Jackets will be picking 4th overall. So that means we have a final 3 of San Jose, Chicago, and Anaheim. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any move. Sharks, or if it still remains Sharks, Hawks, and Ducks. So it'll be interesting to see there. But we do know that the top 3 are going to remain the top 3 once again, just like we had 2 years ago, just like we had last year. The top 3 will remain the top 3. It'll be depending, though, on if there's any movement in the top 3. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. It's going to be interesting to see, but it seems like we're about to figure it out right now. So it'll be, like we said, top 3 picks are currently Ducks, Hawks, and Sharks, but maybe there's some sort of movement in those top 3. The other ones are perfectly fine where they are, but 1, 2, 3 at this point in time, we don't know exactly what's going to happen there. So we're going to have to wait and see. The draft lottery just went to a commercial break, but definitely I think this is a very fantastic thing there for the what happened, and I do think this is going to be interesting. I do feel bad for franchises like Calgary or Seattle who had a chance to move up, potentially take 1st overall, but weren't able to. Arizona as well. Ottawa hasn't had very much draft lottery success since the late 1900s, so I'm a little bit surprised. I'm a little bit upset that they didn't get 1st overall. Montreal did recently have 1st overall pick, but I was quite surprised that they didn't get another 1st overall pick. Hold on, just let me fix this here. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who winds up getting 1st overall and who winds up getting 1, 2, 3. But at this point in time, we have the Ducks, the Hawks, and the Sharks. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens there. At this point in time, we do know the top 4 picks. Just give me a second here. Interesting stuff so far. Give me a moment. Let me get this back up. So yeah, so some of these teams were able to get some draft lottery success, but the top 3 teams do remain the top 3 teams. We saw this in the first year that they went back to only having the 2 draft lottery spots available, where Anaheim, Seattle, and Buffalo were still the 3 teams. We saw this last year where Chicago, Anaheim, and Columbus were still the 3 teams. We just don't know exactly who winds up being first overall. So we're gonna have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But it's going to be interesting to see. So like we said, the last year's top 4 picks were the same as this year's top 4 picks: the Jackets, Hawks, Sharks, and Blue Jackets. Last year it was the Ducks who had the best odds. Then it was Columbus, then it was Chicago, and then it was San Jose. This year San Jose, Chicago, then it's Anaheim, then it's Columbus. So interesting stuff there. But we're gonna have to wait and see for who ends up getting first overall. And if you just killing time right now, what did any of you guys think about the Travis Green hiring in Ottawa? I'll be doing a little bit more in-depth analysis on that in one of my upcoming videos. But Travis Green was hired by Ottawa. Drew Bannister in St. Louis was given a contract extension, so he's going to remain with the head coach of St. Louis. So it's going to be interesting to see how those coaching moves work for the Ottawa Senators and St. Louis Blues. But it'll be interesting to see. We're back to draft lotteries, so just give us a second here. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up winning first overall. Will it be the Blackhawks for the 2nd year in a row, or will the Sharks or Ducks have their first overall pick for the first time in franchise history? So this is 3rd overall. It should be the Anaheim Ducks, and it is the Anaheim Ducks. So the Ducks will pick 3rd overall, so they do not get draft lottery success for the 3rd time in 4 seasons. So that's bad news for them. So now it depends on who's going to get first overall. Will it be the San Jose Sharks, who really deserve first overall pick, or will the Blackhawks move up again in the draft and be able to take Macklin Celebrini? The first overall pick in this year's 2023 draft belongs to the San Jose Sharks. So the Sharks do get first overall. So the Sharks are able to retain first overall. There's no movement in this draft lottery. And the Sharks, who have never been able to pick first overall, will have the right to select Macklin Celebrini. That's fantastic news for the San Jose Sharks. We're able to draft first overall. They also get 14th overall from the Pittsburgh Penguins too. So the Sharks are going to have a lot of good draft capital this year. I expect more moves from the Sharks in the coming days and weeks leading up to the draft. I expect them to consider moving some of these other guys. They're probably going to move on from some of their pending UFAs. So interestingly enough, no movement this year in the draft lottery. We have the Blues at 16, Red Wings at 15, Sharks via the Pittsburgh Penguins at 14, Wild at 13, Flyers at 12, Sabres at 11, Devils at 10, Flames at 9, Kraken at 8. At 7, you have the Senators. At 6, you have the Utah franchise. At 5, you have the Canadiens. 4, you have the Jackets. 3, you have the Ducks. 2, you have the Blackhawks, and the San Jose Sharks, for the first time in franchise history, will be able to pick first overall. So that's fantastic news there for the Sharks. Hawks are able to do pretty good. They get the 2nd overall pick, so they'll be able to take a really good player too. Ducks, Jackets, once again to get top 5 picks, just like they did last year. Canadiens too. So the top 5 in last year's draft was Hawks, Ducks, Jackets, Sharks, and Canadiens. And this year it's Sharks, Hawks, Ducks, Jackets, Canadiens. So still top 5, exactly the same as last year. It'll be interesting to see what happens with all those picks, but the Sharks do wind up getting first overall, which is fantastic news for them and their franchise, while the Ducks will pick 3rd, the Hawks will pick 2nd, the Jackets will pick 4th, the Canadiens will pick 5th, and there's no movement in this year's draft lottery. So that's extremely interesting news. So just once again to recap, this is going to be the first time in franchise history that the San Jose Sharks have won the draft lottery. There's no movement in this year's draft lottery, and in the next couple of days, either sometime tomorrow or potentially over on the weekend on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I will be having a new mock draft discussing a new mock draft after the draft lottery simulation. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch out for. It's going to be a really interesting and fun mock draft to do, and we're probably going to have we're going to do one at some point this week, and then we're probably going to have one, maybe 2 more before the actual draft lottery happens on June 28th to June 29th. So it's going to be interesting to see. I will be doing another live video on June 28th, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. But for the time being, that's the draft lottery simulation. That's how it went. Sharks do get first overall, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that works out. So that's all I'm going to talk about in this draft lottery live video. So no movement in the draft, some interesting stuff happened in this year's draft lottery. We saw some really good anticipation, but no movement in the draft, and the Sharks, for the first time in franchise history, have gone first overall. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of this down in the comment section below. once this video is ended. What do you think about this? Are you surprised that the Sharks did wind up eventually getting the top overall pick? Are you surprised there's no movement in the draft lottery? And definitely stay tuned for my mock draft, which will happen in the not too distant future. And also stay tuned. I post videos really regularly, rather around like every 2 days. So stay tuned. I'm going to have more off-season review videos in not too distant future, talking about the teams who were eliminated in round 1. We're going to have more game reviews in the next little bit, more news videos talking about some news videos as we head into the off-season. And on top of that, we're also going to be doing, like we said, mock draft in the not too distant future. So definitely don't forget to stay tuned for that. But that's what I'm going to talk about for today. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of this down in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed yet, go subscribe. I definitely ask you to. We're so close to 300 subscribers, so if you haven't already, subscribe. I'd love to see you guys subscribe and get us to 300 subscribers. And I'll have more videos in the next little bit. But that's what I'm going to talk about for today. I can't wait to see you guys all for next video, and I'll see you guys soon.